Um, Back in January-ish, so say 6 months ago, I started having hot flashes, and there'd be a few through the day, and then the night sweats were starting. And last year, I had a little spell of it, but it was maybe a couple weeks long, and then it kind of dissipated, and I thought, okay, but I was still having a regular cycle, well, a sporadic cycle, but a cycle. And so I thought, okay, well, it's just ebbing and flowing. And I had gone to the doctors and had my hormones tested, and I was definitely on my way through perimenopause sort of thing, and understandably so at this particular junction of my life. And when the hot flashes and the night sweats started coming back, I started to panic a little bit. And because I know my mom had gone through, well, and still actually has some hot flashes now, and had for 15 years had the night sweats that was, I'm changing my pajamas 3 times a night kind of night sweats. And like, I'm not going to live like that. Like, there's no way I'm signing up for this. If it's in my control. And that's where that's my default. If I can control something for myself, I'm going to do that. And so I knew, having experienced all of the healing and all of the Ayurvedic principles and just the beauty of like circadian rhythms and all the things I'd already started to do through my meditation practice and through the yoga, the first thing that crossed my mind was, okay, I'm going to ask Mirabelle, what do I do? And she's like, okay, well, hormones aren't my specialty, but I have someone that you should speak to. And I'm like, okay, great. Like, I'm open, right? And I always, again, I'll try anything once. And so I was open, and I had a consult with the doctor that Mirabelle had recommended. And, he indicated that I need to have a strong conviction as to why, right? You need a why, because it's not going to be easy, but if you're committed, then it is easy. And it was interesting, because when I first got the protocol, and I sort of, I'd gone away on a holiday, and I was able to just source a few of the things that I knew I needed. And I said, okay, when I come back from this break, I'm going to start fresh. And I got everything out, and I got the protocol lined up. And the first few days I was thinking, gosh, this is no joke. Like, this is certain things at certain times of the day, and things that I didn't understand why I was taking them. It didn't really make sense to me why I would have this thing at whatever. And I was eating, garlic for breakfast, and there was all these things that it didn't really make sense to me, but I was trusting the process. And I'm like, you know what? There's lots of things that we do because the doctor says, use this patch, take that pill, and we don't question it. We just do it anyway, right? And I'm like, okay, well, I believe that at least everything I was taking was natural. It was food or spices and things that I would have normally incorporated in a meal, but just in a different order at a different time. So like, this is great. I didn't feel like I was compromising anything going through the process. And then after a while, I hadn't started, I was still having some hot flashes and night sweats, but I understood that this is a process, right? And it has to go through a few cycles, right? So you have an ovulation cycle of 28 days. And so it's going to take a few cycles for your hormones to start to reset themselves into balance. And I'm like, okay, so, just keep going. And I got to about day 30, and I was like, I don't think I had any hot flashes yesterday, but it was almost as though I kind of wasn't paying attention. And then I'm like, okay, this is good. And then a couple more days went by. And the first session, the first layer of the protocol was to do a 40-day reset. And I got to 40 days, and I'm like, oh, I need to keep going because this feels great. And I wasn't having hot flashes. I wasn't having the night sweats. And I'm like, and actually, this whole thing is actually really easy because I didn't need to think about what I was going to eat when, and, what's going to be for dinner and whatever. I literally was just going through my routine, and it was simple, and it was healthy, and it and so I'm like, oh, I'm just going to keep going, because I equally didn't want to stop and then have a reversion and the night sweats and all these things start to come back. So I gave myself another 30 days and I made it to 60 days, following the protocol very diligently. And then I decided that I would start just incorporating other foods that I enjoy and things. And so far, my body's felt good. And I've not had any more hot flashes or night sweats, but I also am sort of eating, with my family and doing things. But I also have got to a place where I have a different appreciation for food. And so we might all sit down to a meal together, but I might be eating something else that I prefer that they're not interested in, and that's okay. But it doesn't mean that we then can't sit together and eat as a family. It just means we're going to eat something different. And I think, well, my different might be more different. I don't think that's different than most families who now probably have fussy children and who want something specific anyway. And the two kids can't agree, and so the mom makes 3 meals for everybody. And that's kind of where we've let it go. I was having an interesting conversation with a group of friends the other night, and it was like, yeah, do you remember when you were a kid getting a special meal? No, everybody just ate what was put in front of them, and there was no question. And if you didn't eat it, I guess you were going to be hungry. Or you probably weren't hungry because otherwise you wouldn't eat it. And we've just evolved to really cater to our children and our personal preferences outside of what is reasonable, probably at mealtime. But digression is that I'm really enjoying the new understanding that I have of food, the new relationship that I have with food, having gone through this protocol. It was really interesting. There were a few points where I reached out to the doctor asking questions about, am I getting enough protein, and am I, I had lost some weight, and I was like, well, that wasn't my goal. My goal was literally to just balance my hormones. And, so the concerns I had, but I didn't ever feel bad. I felt really good. So then the question was, well, why do I have this sort of social conditioning that I need to have so much protein, or that I need to eat a certain way to feel good, when I was doing that before and didn't feel good, and now I'm not doing it and I feel fine? And so it was really around, how about, again, listening to my body to let it tell me what it needs. And I was fine. I was feeling satiated. I didn't have chocolate for like 45 days or something, which is unheard of. I was always the person who had a little piece of chocolate, not a whole chocolate bar, just a piece after lunch. And, every day, just whatever I was eating for lunch, I'd have a little piece of chocolate. And I went 45 days without a single piece of chocolate, and I survived, and it was fine. And I didn't even feel like I needed it. And now I, can have chocolate in my day, and if I don't, I don't. But it's now a choice, and again, a more conscious awareness to whether I need that chocolate or not, or how is that then going to make my body feel. So yeah, it's been an amazing journey. And again, just one other part of the whole experience of yoga and Ayurveda, and just the ability to listen to the intuition and to be in sync with nature. And I remember one of my first aha moments, Mirabelle had shared a couple books with me, and one of them just talked about the simplicity of circadian rhythms and nature, and how it's so intuitive to think that flowers bloom as they should. Animals know when to hibernate. They know when to gather their food. They know when to mate, and when to, they know all of these things intuitively, and they just do them. And yet we make everything so much effort. And we try to intervene, and we try to do things that are outside of what our bodies naturally want to do, and, like staying up past sunset. And so we have all these artificial lights so that we can, still watch TV or play video games or whatever until the wee hours of the morning. Or we have blackout curtains and an alarm clock so that we don't get up with the sun. And it all seems so counterintuitive. And it's not a no wonder we're sick and feeling depleted and terrible and angry and have this sort of negative energy in the world when all we're doing is just fighting nature.
Yeah. Can you say one last thing about women perception and menopause? Like perception, because it's the conditioning that's causing women to buy into these. And you and I know how much pharma companies are making from all of this, right? Yeah. But it's conditioning that menopause is going to be suffering.
Yeah.
That that makes women accept it as though it's a norm. When in your experience, 40 days and you were able to change those extreme symptoms.
Yeah.
Can you, like in a nutshell, just speak to that? Because I think conditioning is a very important part, because when there is conditioning and there's no awareness, it's just like, oh, that's how it is. Like, that's how it is for my friend. All my friends are complaining about menopause.
Yeah. There's a sense of, also there's conditioning from two places. One, social conditioning that you just don't talk about menopause, or we certainly don't talk about it in the workplace. You don't talk about it with even your partner or, whatever, maybe with your girlfriends. But then it's almost like a group think where everyone gets together and then you all want to complain about the same issues and, the weight gain and I feel this and I feel that and I've got brain fog and whatever. And I hear that there's, misery loves company and there's safety in numbers. And if we're all going through it and we can all like feel terrible together. But I'd like to be the one in the room that says there's a different way, right? There is another way to feel. There's another thing that you can do. And I've offered that up to a few friends now in terms of, I'm like, well, this is my experience. This is what I believe. This is how it went for me. And I'm like, you really have nothing to lose. You try it. It's 40 days out of your whole life. And if you decide that it's not for you or it doesn't work, then what did you lose? But people are very conditioned to, or almost there's a sense of not wanting to do something that's too strange or not the norm. It's almost the norm to take the pharmaceuticals, and everybody talks about, what is it, HRT or whatever. Everybody's like very comfortable saying, oh yeah, I'm on HRT. And everybody be like, oh, well, that's, yeah, me too, because I just couldn't take it anymore or whatever. And so it seems as though that's okay. That's socially acceptable. But saying that you need to eat a certain meal at a certain time isn't socially acceptable. And I can tell you that it's a lot easier. And I even made it work. Like, we'd go to a client dinner with my husband. And so I ate before I went. And then interestingly enough, I would, at the dinner, I would say, sorry, I already ate before I came and I don't like to eat too late because it would be like a 7:30 reservation. I eat at 5:30 already. And, I just don't like to eat too close to dinner. And if I felt like there was an opportunity to say, and, I'm working on a special hormone protocol. And if it was another woman, she'd be like, oh, God, tell me all about it. Because there's this sense of like, she was probably experiencing some hormonal shifts or challenges too. And they were be interested. But I appreciate that the protocol wouldn't be for everyone, or they wouldn't be ready for it, or they didn't think they could do it. But I assure you, you can do it. It actually wasn't that hard once you just have to start. Like any marathon, hiking up a mountain, you literally just have to start, right? One foot in front of the other. And that's all it's going to take, is just to keep going and be consistent. And then you get to the top of the mountain and you have this beautiful view. And that is what it's like to not have hot flashes.